Good afternoon to all of you, and good morning to those of you who are joining from the West Coast, and good day to all of you from wherever you're joining us. And thank you for answering your phones and taking part in our first Amherst College Squash Phonecast. My name is Gregg DiNardo, Associate Director of Athletics, and I am joined by our new head coach, Busani Xaba. First, I want to start off by saying that I do hope all of you and your families are well during these uncertain times, and I'm sure that all of you are quite busy. So thank you for taking time out of your busy days to join us this afternoon. Secondly, again, Coach Xaba and I are excited to talk about all things Amherst Squash, and we'll leave some time at the end for anyone who's interested to call into the show and ask a question and continue the conversation. The purpose of today's call is to introduce you to Coach Xaba and to, again, continue to foster the high level of engagement that you all as alumni play such a huge role, and to recognize really all of you for all that you've done and the foundation that you've laid for our current players and really all those to come in the future. So we've heard from a lot of you that you're excited to hear from Coach, so we are also very excited to get started. As you all know, Coach Xaba took the reins here at Amherst just this past summer, and in that short time already has made a significant impact on our squash program, and I can speak for myself and for the rest of the department that we are super lucky to have Coach Xaba here on board with us and to continue the great tradition and history of Amherst Squash that all of you have helped build over the years. So again, thank you. Before we get to hear from Coach Xaba, I just want to mention a couple of logistical items. First, we've planned on 60 minutes for this afternoon's call. We know many of you are busy, so please feel free to jump off at any time, but know we're very conscious of our time frame. So if the call doesn't last 60 minutes, then so be it. If for some reason we run out of time, you will have the opportunity to leave a question for Coach Xaba via voicemail, and I know he'll personally get back to you. For those of you who are interested in asking a question, you'll want to press *3 from your phone to get in the queue. That's *3. And throughout the course of the call, we will patch individual questions in so you can ask directly to Coach Xaba. And lastly, if you would like to receive a text with a link to the live stream audio and listen online instead of your phone, press *8. *8. So it's *3 to ask a question from your phone, *8 to receive a text with a link to the live stream. So without further ado, I would just personally like to thank all of you for your continued support of Amherst Squash and all that you do for our program, for our students, and obviously for Amherst College. And with that, I turn it over to Coach Busani Xaba.
Good morning to everyone, both on the East Coast and the West Coast, and anywhere else you're calling from. I'm excited to get to know all of you. I've been lucky enough to speak to some of you over the last few months, but most of all, I am excited to be part of the Amherst family, and it's a great opportunity today to inform you about the plans that we have for our teams going forward. So I will start off by telling you a little bit about myself. And I was born in Zimbabwe, which is in southern Africa. And Zimbabwe is a former British colony, and that's where I stumbled upon a great game of squash. And because of the British history, there's a lot of squash courts in Zimbabwe, and I was lucky enough to come across squash at junior school, and then by the time I got to high school, it happened to be one of the sports that I really fell in love with, and I was strong-armed by a high school teacher who decided squash was going to be my main sport. As all of you know, once you're hooked, you're hooked. But throughout my high school career, I represented my country, Zimbabwe, and was lucky enough to play in the World Championships in the year 2000, coming 13th in the team event. But at that time, I also fell in love with coaching, I guess mostly because of the joy that my coach brought to the game. So I decided to start learning how to coach, and did some development work in Zimbabwe, working for the national organization, and from there I moved to South Africa, where I played and coached. And once I spent some time in South Africa, I moved to the southwest of England, where I was lucky enough to work in an independent school called Bryanston. Whilst I was working at that school, I found a great mentor in a gentleman called Gary Batchelor, who helped me go through my coaching qualifications whilst I was doing my sports studies at Kingston Moorwood. And whilst I was in the southwest of England, I represented Dorset, which is where I lived for 7 years, and two other people that were great mentors to me were a gentleman called Ian Thomas, who's the director of squash at Millfield School, and his former mentor, Jonah Barrington, who's actually a key reason why I ended up in the United States. And through Jonah Barrington, I was lucky enough to get connected to a former England squash captain, Chris Walker, who was world number 4, and through him I moved to the United States to coach at San Diego Squash, and this was in 2007. I spent 2 lovely years in San Diego, but it felt too much like a holiday, so I decided that it was time to move, and I was fortunate enough to be hired by Dartmouth College as an assistant. So I spent 3 seasons from 2009 to 2012 working as an assistant to Hansi Wiens, the current head coach at Dartmouth, and I learned a lot about college squash during that time, and got great memories at my time in Hanover. And in 2012, I decided to go back to the West Coast and find the sun. Luckily, I also found my wife during that time, so moved to the West Coast and started coaching at the University Club of San Francisco, where I was the head squash coach and athletic director. And San Francisco did not have much squash when I first moved, but it's become quite a strong hub, particularly for junior squash. And it's been great to see West Coast squash grow throughout nearly a decade that I was there. But one of the most exciting things as well on the West Coast is that I was involved in doubles, which is a big game at the University Club of San Francisco. So for San Francisco not being a hub for squash, squash has grown in leaps and bounds. So yeah, that's a little bit about myself. But I'll move on. I have a couple of questions that I was pre-asked here. One of the questions that I was asked is, to talk about Amherst squash tradition and legacy. From my short time of communicating with alums and and just, observing what happens here at Amherst in squash, I feel like the legacy, the traditional legacy, is one of excellence and teamwork. In particular, Amherst squash players strive to be high performers on court and in the classroom. There's a deep legacy of commitment to the program in the form of squash academics and professional mentorship and advice. I've sensed this from conversing with different generations of alums. Another question I was asked is, why am I excited to be at Amherst? I feel I've met 3 generations of Amherst alums throughout my time in the US, and they actually happened all to be in San Francisco, and they are all extremely excited about their experience they had here as students, and they talk about Amherst like they were here yesterday. So before thinking about this job, I had the insight of that, and that group of alumni also happen to be great supporters of the urban city squash movement. So they give back a lot to a game that brought them so much joy. But in particular, I'm excited to be at Amherst, obviously because of its history of excellence and the strides it's taking to be an inclusive institution. For the team, I'm excited to help the teams to be more competitive. Another aspect I'm excited about is the tradition of paying forward, and this is visible in the strength of the alumni, so it's good to see this being fostered. Another question here that I have is, what is the team up to? Who's on campus? I think, as you all know, we've had a very unusual term, and I'll let Gregg, DiNardo, speak a little bit about what we've been what has gone on in this unusual term, and it being my first semester here.
Yeah, thanks, Coach. I also just want to remind everyone that if you'd like to get in the queue to ask a question, please hit *3 on your phone. We'd love to make this as interactive as possible, and for all of you to have the opportunity to ask Coach some questions. But certainly, as it's been for all of us in our daily lives, professional lives, personal lives, such a wild 2020, and here on campus at Amherst hasn't been any different. Fortunately, with our athletic facilities and squash courts in particular, we've been able to have those open and accessible, and Coach Xaba and his staff, including Stuart George, who we should all say hello to and thank you for all that he did during his time last year at the helm, who's joining us today, and grateful for all his work. We're able to work with those students that were here on campus in really sort of whatever capacity that we could within the parameters set forth by the state and the college. But I know that we're all chomping at the bit to get back at a normal level of athletic competition, amongst many other things. But yes, I'll turn it over back to Coach Xaba for, I know he has some other prepared remarks, but again, please hit *3 for anyone who's interested in asking a question.
Excellent. Thank you, Gregg. I think still on the same lines of having this different experience on campus. Luckily, this is my first semester, as I mentioned, so I knew no different. So the restrictions are all I know. But this past semester, we had freshmen and sophomore on campus, and we had 16 student athletes, so divided evenly, 8 men and 8 women. We were lucky enough to manage approximately 6 weeks on court, and it wasn't the squash as we know it. At state, we had, one person per court working on solos, and as Gregg mentioned, as the state and administration allowed us a bit more freedom, we were able to have two people on court and do drills that kept us at least 10 feet apart. But, through this interaction with the students, with student athletes, we were able to get to know the freshmen, and for myself, get to know the sophomores, in smaller groups. And, one of the things we realized, because of these restrictions, the students, really their morale really picked up once they were allowed to get on court. So we were very grateful that we got those few weeks on court. And the students left campus last week, just before Thanksgiving, and we don't anticipate on seeing the students until about the 3rd of February. As the students, half the students have been away, we've been trying to, keep in touch with, the students that are off campus, using Zooms and, calling them individually. And Stuart and I have been dividing and conquering. One of us calls the women's team, one of us calls the men, and we, swap that around. So we are, we're very, I'm very fortunate that Stuart is here because, he knows the lay of the land, and he's been, very gracious in sharing all the information he has. I'll pass it back to Gregg.
Okay, we thank you for those of you who are in the queue for asking some questions. We are going to go to Stephen Barbash. Stephen, it's great to have you on the call. Thank you for chiming in here.
Hi.
Hi, Stephen.
I was curious. I played squash back in 1956, 57, and I was one of the few people who had ever had a connection with squash who had not gone to prep school. I wonder if that's still the situation, if you're getting many people who are tennis people from public schools. That was one question. The other was, does there seem to be an increase in the number of female athletes as opposed to male athletes? The third question is, I feel kind of strange about the squash team being called the Amherst Mammoths on the squash court. It's a little odd. But I guess that's the openings anyway.
All great questions. So I think with regards to, our recruiting policy, we noticed that there are players from different walks of life. So we have a lot of students that, have come from state schools, and, just from my observation of the composition of the team at the moment. But secondly, we're also, Amherst supports, the urban squash movement, and they hold a tournament here every summer. So we actually have some inner city students that are prospective recruits. So, we're really looking at students from all walks of life. Because, squash sometimes does have a reputation for being a prep school, but I think a prep school sport. So we're definitely looking broadly. And then with regards to female athletes, we have a very strong, women's team, which has 14 very strong athletes, and they are afforded the same opportunities as the men. And I actually think, when we begin our competition, I think we'll have a very strong team. And then your last question, I'll let Gregg answer, your third question.
Stephen, thanks for those questions. We, as you know, as a college, 3 years ago now, went through a new mascot name, and the reality is we've had a really wonderful reception of the Mammoths here on campus. It's become a real great part of our college, not only just in athletics, but throughout the college. It's something that students, faculty, staff all identify with, and it's something that we as a school have really rallied around. I am, like anything, we are always in the process of sort of, doing what's best moving forward to, position us in the college as, thinking about our history and thinking about the best way to position ourselves moving forward. But at the moment, the Mammoths has been something, a mascot that's been really well received. Our teams love it. Our students love it. Faculty, staff, it's been a really great, transition for the college and for the athletic department. Coach Xaba, I think I just want to ask you a question. It sort of goes a little bit along Stephen's question, but talking a little bit about, the areas with which you're identifying prospective students and, how you go about doing that, that recruiting process.
It's a great question. I've been fortunate enough that I have, straddled both sides of college coaching and club coaching, and over the last 15 years I've been in this country. I've worked both in the Northeast and on the West Coast, and as I was mentioning earlier in the call, the West Coast has become a very strong squash region. So the combination of knowing the families, knowing the coaches, and honestly also knowing the students. So if I've been here for 15 years, most of those students are probably who that started around when I got here, are the ones that are being recruited. So just the network of families and coaches and administrators that I know in this country, help us identify the best people. And I think we're looking at both academics and the quality of the human being, and and in the case that we do choose to look at some international prospects, we have, through myself and Stuart, we have very wide networks abroad as well. So we feel lucky by the networks that we've created over the last few years.
A question that just came in online is talking a little bit about, Coach, your expectations for the teams moving forward and sort of the competitive nature of your teams and what you hope for competitive-wise, once we all get past COVID.
With regards to competitiveness, I think we have a lot of potential. I noted that the men's team are 23rd in the nation. We have to start, with the smaller things, thinking of, winning the little threes and edging closer to our competitors, Williams. But I think it's, again, I feel like we're a very lucky team here. Stuart and I are probably two of the coaches in this country that are still able and willing to be on the squash court. So if it's technically any player that comes here, we will be able to fulfill, their potential. But also, with regard to recruiting, we definitely are going to, we're looking to recruit, very strong students that are good squash players as well. But the expectation, I think, there's an element of change in culture a little bit with regards to training, because you really win your matches at training. So I think that's one thing Stuart and I agree on, in that there's definitely a culture shift with regards to training.
One of the things I'd like to add, again, this is Gregg DiNardo. For those of you who want to ask a question, please hit *3. We do have people in the queue, so thank you for chiming in. I want to just talk a little bit about, for those of you that haven't been back to the facility recently, we have now updated all of our courts with the new U.S. Squash scoring system that is run through U.S. Squash. So all 10 courts have monitors for scoreboards. We have all of the U.S. Squash scoreboard system, and we've installed cameras on every single court. So we're really excited about the new technology in the facility to not only help to think a little bit about, the competitive nature of the program, but also two big things that I know that we think about a lot in athletics and Coach Xaba is obviously teaching, the ability to record players while they're training, and to be able to use that footage to help improve, and obviously recording matches to do that type of post-video work. And then secondly, what we're really hoping for moving forward is the ability to capture those camera capabilities to offer live streaming of our matches. I know that is something that has been very much on, the radar of a lot of you to help us be able to webcast more matches, and we are just about there to do that. So, and again, Ken, thank you, all of you who helped us get to that point, but those upgrades to the facility have really already proved to be a game changer for us. I know that that's pretty standard now within the elite squash programs across the country, and we're really excited to be able to be a part of that. So let's go to Robert Bingham out in San Francisco, the former home of Coach Xaba. Robert, are you there?
I am, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Bob.
Hey, Busani, how you doing?
I'm well. How are you doing?
I am doing well. Just a quick background. I am a member of the University Club, former president, and was witness to Busani's reign here at the club. We've gotten at Amherst a phenomenal player and person and for sure recruiter. So I think Amherst is very lucky to have you, Busani. He built the juniors program at this club, which was pretty non-existent when he came. And he was personally responsible for probably over 100 new members at the club during his time here. So, and beyond that, he's just an exceptional person with a lovely wife who is a great squash player herself, and a couple of wonderful little kids. So, Busani, a couple questions. Is there doubles being played interscholastically or not?
There's doubles in college squash as a national championship, but I am told that there used to be a doubles court here. It is not a doubles court yet, but I'm sitting across a person who may be able to change that in the future. I will, but we have 10 singles courts right now, but we will definitely, we'll definitely try and compete in the college squash doubles competition.
Okay. Yeah, when I was there, I was class of 70, and we did have that doubles court, although it was rarely used. But doubles is a big sport out here. And, the University Club is one of the leading clubs in doubles on the West Coast. So then, Busani, could you comment on the article in the Atlantic that recently appeared, and you could probably summarize it. There's probably a lot of people out there that didn't read it, but I think the bottom line of the article was how some of these formerly little noticed sports have become super competitive, and some of these programs are being eliminated. Probably the most visible is Stanford, which had a squash team and recently disbanded the squash team along with crew and a number of other sports, essentially for budgetary reasons, promoting the football team and the baseball team, et cetera, and not just as a COVID-related situation. So I'd be curious whether that is reaching the East Coast or not. I sense maybe not, but I don't really know. And I guess to a somewhat related question is when I was at Amherst, when I came from a public school and had not played squash at all, and was a decent tennis player, but not at the caliber of the team. And I was able by junior year to make the team, and played between number 7 and number 9 for my junior and senior year, and we were third in the country, I think, in my junior year. So my question is it possible for a freshman who's never played the game to take it up and make the team? I suspect not these days, but I'd be interested in your comment about that.
So I will touch on your first part of your question, the article from the Atlantic. So I think, firstly, the journalist that wrote it, I think, did admit that a lot of information she put in there was made up, and I think she has had a history of, writing articles that are not fully fact. But touching on, I'll be frank in that some of there were some parts that are true. There are 3 programs in the country that were cut: Stanford, Brown, and George Washington. And the reasons that we are told is that they were budgetary. The part that the journalist mentions about squash being elite and sports like rowing, I feel most sports in the country and other areas of extracurricular activities like music, even mathematics or other things have just become very competitive. Parents are paying money to give their children an edge. So I don't think it's just exclusively to squash, tennis, golf, and rowing. I think it's all around. The part that I can attest to, being very involved in the urban city squash movement, is that the students from the urban city programs are not getting to the levels that they're good enough to be recruited by colleges. I'm lucky that I have the knowledge of urban city squash. I think they do have a plan to change that, and I definitely know that there are groups, active groups that are working at changing that true statistic that very few urban city squash kids. And I can speak for Amherst College. I definitely know that we are actively looking to recruit urban city squash students. I know other schools have. So I can speak to that part. And then and there's a specific part in the Atlantic that mentions Amherst, which is totally fabricated, that if a player of that caliber that they mentioned was to communicate with me or Stuart, we would listen to such a player. So I think there may be a factual issue on that point. And then your last question about, can a player come here that has never played squash and make the team? That's very highly unlikely because a lot of the students are playing the game for between 8 to 10 years before they get to college.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks for the call, Bob. Okay, Ann Armour, so great that you chimed in. How are you today?
I'm great, thanks. I must confess I don't really have a question, but I wanted to follow up on Bob's question a little bit, just to say that I have a son at Amherst who, despite the highly competitive nature of a couple of those sports mentioned, is able to do both, or has so far in his career. He's not on campus now, but that a place like Amherst allows a kid, if they can balance it, to do that, which our family certainly appreciates. I was like Bob. I came to Amherst not having played squash, and my dad taught me the summer before I got there, and so I ended up playing not super competitively, I'd have to say, but and I also participated in crew, which I'd never done before. But so I think there's support for kids who are competitive and also are still interested in other aspects, whether it be academic or other sports, or, you know, we've had guys on the team the last couple of years who are in the a cappella groups and stuff like that, which is pretty cool.
Absolutely. Thanks, and it's nice to meet you over the phone. I have heard a lot of great things about you. I think our paths might have crossed in junior squash. So thank you so much for your comments.
Sure.
Okay, Peter Kleinman, are you there? We'd love to have you on the call. Thanks for calling in.
Can you hear me?
Hi, Peter.
Can you hear me?
We can. How are you?
Oh, okay. So I wanted to make a comment. I feel like an old fogey, but when I came to Amherst in 1960, Ed Saris saw me fooling around on the tennis court and yelled out to me, "Hey, you're on the squash team." And being a public school kid from the East Coast, who felt a bit overwhelmed by being in the prep school atmosphere of Amherst, I immediately joined up, and it was one of the greatest things that happened to me while I was at Amherst. But there was, although I made it to number 2 by the time of my senior year, there was no question about the difference between me and the number 1 on our team, who was Tom Poor, and nationally ranked at the time. And for us, it was just a privilege to watch. I guess the greatest player at the time that we saw was Vic Niederhofer, who was this city kid who gambled to get through Harvard and who was such an ungainly, awkward kid. He was so obviously not a prep school kid. And I think what I'm saying was that my opportunity came because the coach reached out and was looking for additional people to join the team. I would love to see that as still a part of the program, to reach out and make squash a less elite, more commonly accepted sport for college kids. It was such a splendid opportunity for me, and made me feel a part of the campus in a way that would have been harder without it for me. So anyway, that's a comment, but I cringe a little bit at the competitive recruiting, because that's a kind of elitist concept to me. I would love to see the game made more popular on the campus. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, and, you know, with regards to accessibility to everybody on campus, we have, you know, the courts are open to all the students, and there's some, you know, physical education offerings on campus. So we are, you know, we're able to interact with, you know, students that are not specifically on the team. But you mentioned the name Ed Saris. I've heard a lot of amazing things about his tenure here, and when I first arrived, I exchanged emails with his son, who echoed your sentiment. Did you happen to play with the Sadler brothers?
Oh yeah, you know, they were great. They were identical twins.
Yes.
And you never knew which one was on the court with you.
Did they ever swap around?
I mean, they used to tell stories about that. They were lovely guys, and
you couldn't tell. I think their professors must have watched them swap around in class as well.
All of those people that you mentioned, they mentioned they came to squash the way you have described, and I think in our efforts to recruit, we will be paying close attention to those things. And I think as I mentioned on the call, we are trying to make squash as accessible as possible, and hopefully do some things as well in the community. But I am not from personally, I'm not from a prep school background, but I appreciate that a lot of people from different walks of life play the game, and it's a game that you play for life. So I do appreciate your comments.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. All right. I have a couple of questions here that I was asked, about the plans of the team moving forward. I think we did touch on, improving the teams, and I mentioned the men finished 23rd in the nation, the women finished 17th, and both teams have got a lot of space, for improvement. And I think, as Gregg mentioned, we want to really, we want to share this, and we will be able to stream these games live on the US Squash Club Locker, and then also through our camera system that that we're working on. So to that end, I'd like to talk about alumni engagement from some conversations that I have had with various alumni, again, of different generations. They have, the common theme is, they'd like to know more about what we're doing. So our plan is to create a systematic communication plan that keeps alumni informed about what we're doing on a regular basis. We'll work on trying to compete in different cities and regions, so alumni can come and watch us. We're also, trying to create an organization around how athletes can interact with alumni and get to know them better. When we travel or be it on campus, we'd like to create events for alumni, to come onto campus and meet our students, and hopefully teach them a thing or two on court. But most importantly, we want to keep you informed on a regular basis. I'll pass it back to Gregg.
Thanks, Coach, and thanks for all of you who have chimed in about the access piece and your perspectives about students having the ability just to come and play squash or learn how to play squash. I think Busani mentioned this, but our facilities are open all the time for students, whether they're want to come down and play some sort of just with their friends. We have offered intramural squash in the past, and we hope to continue to do that. That's always been a fun activity for students that are looking to get more involved with the sport. But again, I just want to reiterate what Busani said, in that our facility is open for anyone that wants to come down and play and hit and learn the sport and have more access to such a great game. So I just wanted to reiterate that. Again, just remember *3 if anyone has any more questions. We only have a few more minutes left here, so if you have any burning questions, please, now's the time. In the meantime, I think Coach Busani has one more thing, and we'll go from there. I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to
taking the time out of your busy day to spend some time with us. And I think, as I mentioned, I'm thrilled to be here, and feel that it's an honor to be at such an institution, and I will do my level best to ensure that we get the best out of all our teams. But when the time is right, I do look forward to meeting a lot of you on campus or around the country somewhere. Thank you very much.
So before we close, there are a couple more here in the queue, and I'd be remiss if I didn't go to a class of 2001 legend, Addison West, on the line. What's up, Addison?
What's up? It's great to have a fellow 2001 on the call. Gregg, nice to hear from you. Busani, welcome.
Thank you, Addison.
On behalf of a whole bunch of people who are close with the San Francisco crew of alumni from Amherst. Obviously I know you through Lauren, but I have family in San Francisco and that scene. My generation at Amherst very, very excited to have learned that you were joining, and just very pumped that you're going to be part of the organization that brought all of us together long ago. My couple comments, besides just saying thank you for joining, and really excited to have you as on the Amherst team running things for us. On the alumni side, I was recently reconnected with a number of guys on my team, a little older, a little younger, and I actually live closer to a few of them than I thought. And I just wanted to throw it out there kind of to Gregg and to you, just in that whole alumni thing. Amherst does the Amherst chats and Amherst networking and all of that. I think the squash team is gonna rally around this new the next generation of Amherst squash. It's been forever since there's been a change like this, and take advantage of it and connect us in our regions and all of this, because squash, unlike a lot of other sports, I'm very old, I'm decrepit, I'm overweight, I can't climb the stairs, but I still like to play squash, and it's something I hope to do until I'm in my 80s. So, connect our networks together regionally and suggest that we, connect as this next generation of Amherst squash is taking hold. And, I know I have a few contacts, but you have all the contacts, and just, maybe use this as an opportunity to have us all reconnect. And after this COVID thing is died down and months down the road, we can get together and play this sport that's just kind of a wonderful lifelong sport, and a bunch of us play doubles, and we can do that. So that was my one suggestion. And then I also had 3 members of my varsity team who did not hit a squash ball before they joined, before they walked on campus. So I just thought that'd be a little tidbit for the data collection we've been doing today. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Addison.
Addison, there's no way you're decrepit. I just don't believe it. Great to hear your voice, and thank you for offering the alumni piece. And again, I think what Addison just said is not unlike any other of the generations of Amherst squash over the years, and your willingness and your support to continue to help with this program on so many levels, from staffing to facilities upgrades to recruiting and the ability to attract the best prospective students possible. So thank you, Addison. We are also excited to get out there and reconnect with so many of you to help us continue to bring Amherst squash into the next generation, if you will. So thank you Addison. And thank you, all of you, for joining us today. We really, really appreciate your willingness to take time out of your day. For me, as someone who's involved with the program on a day-to-day basis, it's always so great to see all of you chime in the range of alums on this call, and I think it just really shows the commitment to the program and to the college, so thank you. If anyone has any questions that you think of following this event, please don't hesitate to reach out to Busani or myself. We're very accessible. If you're ever back or find yourself on campus for a homecoming or an event or a reunion, please let us know. We're really open to getting to know all of you moving forward, and thank you for your time. Have a wonderful afternoon, and be well. Take care.